Save Lil Wayne! Save Lil Wayne! Hi, I'm Scott Ott, and this episode of Right Angles brought to you by the members at BillWhittle.com. I'm here with Bill Whittle and Stephen Green. And gentlemen, Lil Wayne, like Lil Abner. See, I'm doing something from my generation and from the current generation. So
you're bringing people
there
together.
Goes everybody under 50.
Lil Wayne, who Bill tells me his real name is Dwayne Carter, is facing possibly 10 years in prison because federal agents searched his airplane, or an airplane in which he was a passenger, back in December of 2019, found a weapons and possibly ammunition, or a weapon and ammunition. And because he was previously convicted of a felony in 2009 and is never allowed to possess a gun again in his life, he could wind up going to jail for 10 years. Now, I know nothing about Lil Wayne. I think he did like a pizza commercial or something. I think I've seen him on TV, but I couldn't name a single song that he did. However, it did jog me on a particular issue. Stephen Green, I don't read TMZ very often, but when I do, you know it's going to be deep. But TMZ had this story, and it makes me wonder, Steve, what does it take for a person to pay their debt to society if for the rest of their life, even after they're done with their sentence and their fine or whatever else that they had to do, they still don't have the full constitutional rights of an American citizen?
Yeah, I want to say before I get into my answer that I've always been a big fan of Lil Wayne Newton. His song Donkey Shane Bitches, I think, is an American classic that will stand the test of time. And if you don't own a copy, I encourage you to go to the streaming or music service of your choice and get a copy that's timeless, I think is the word we're looking for. But that's the thing. Once you've done your time, you're supposed to have done your time. That's not to say, okay, let's say I've been convicted of some horrible thing. I serve my time. I get out of jail and I do it again. I think when it comes time for sentencing me for the second offense, it would be the prosecutor's job, maybe even the judge in setting up my prosecution, and the judge's job in my sentencing, maybe the jury's job as well, to take into account the fact that I'd done this before and maybe my punishment the second time should be worse. But in between that time from, here are your things back, you're free to leave the prison, and the time the police catch me again, I'm supposed to be an American citizen again, aren't I? We're restoring voting rights to felons. I think that's the right thing to do. It's called doing your time. It's not called doing your time and then rubbing your nose in it for the rest of your life. The founders were very smart. The only crime I can think of that's explicitly mentioned in the Constitution is treason, and they limited it. This is the founders' thinking. They limited treason, the definition of it, to providing aid or comfort to the enemy, and they made sure that it couldn't be. The Dayquil's really kicking in here. That only you could be punished for treason. That your children, your grandchildren could also be punished for it. There'd be no blood punishment for even the most serious of crimes. And that's the attitude our founders had towards crime. Number one, it had to be very serious to even come to the Fed's attention. And two, your punishment had to be limited to just you. I would really like to get back to that sort of thinking again. America is a land of second chances. I really like our bankruptcy laws. This is related, believe it or not. One of the reasons why Americans are such entrepreneurs, or maybe the cause and effect relationship is sort of reversed in this, is that our bankruptcy laws are, well, except for when Joe Biden clamps down on them to protect his credit card companies in Delaware, our bankruptcy laws are some of the most lenient in the world. And the reason is to encourage risk taking, that one mistake, one bankruptcy isn't going to be a stain on your reputation forever. It should be the exact same thing, even with a felony conviction.
Bill Whittle, it's interesting that the attorney for Lil Wayne says that his client was not accused of threatening anybody with a gun, was not accused with brandishing a gun, was not accused of firing a gun. And in fact, federal agents went onto his plane and confiscated a gun that he was not wielding, apparently, in any way. A gold-plated handgun at that. And
cool.
You just,
I expect no less.
It sounds to me like it was more of a, hey, isn't it cool to have a gold-plated handgun than a threat to anybody. Bill, even when Steve was talking there, it occurred to me, why do we refer to somebody who's paid their debt to society as a felon or even as a former felon? Like, shouldn't it be fresh start? Let's give him a new chance?
Well, there's a bunch of great stuff here. First of all, when were charges brought? Do you know, Scott?
Well, it looks
we
like
know that the investigation, or rather the incident, took place
December of 2019.
December. Yeah.
So it says here, it doesn't say what day. Of course, TMZ, which is, not the most scrupulous website when it comes to details. It says the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida has charged the rapper with one count of possession of a firearm and ammunition by a convicted felon. And he could face 10 years if convicted.
Well, Lil Wayne is facing 10 years in federal prison for multiple charges of having his arm around Donald Trump and telling black people that he's a great guy. That's why he's being singled out here. I have no doubt about that whatsoever. And once again, all of this stuff that I thought was fiction about the deep state and so on and the FBI corruption and all the rest of it. And no, it's true. It's true. So that's why he's being threatened with this. But let's talk about the philosophical issue, because it's a really interesting issue. You've got two conflicting moral imperatives here. One of them is are the principles of freedom and liberty and constitutional restraints on power and so on. And then on the other hand, you have the moral imperative to try to protect society from known criminals. So I'll take the side of the argument first that I disagree with the most. They both are pretty good cases. You can make the case that once a person commits a felony, they have already shown that they are no longer willing or able to abide by the rules of civilization. They have excerpted themselves from the community of law-abiding citizens by committing a felony. And because they committed an egregious crime like this, they can no longer be trusted. That's basically the argument. Gun ownership, as I've known for many years, is dependent on state by state. I actually found out from these two guys just a half an hour ago during our backstage show. But some states allow you to own a weapon after you've been convicted of a felony, and others don't. And the argument can be made that the mere commission of a felony deprives you of the right to own a firearm and so on. I don't find that argument particularly strong. I especially don't find it strong if you're busted on a marijuana charge and you never get to own a gun again, never even had a gun, let alone didn't brandish it. If you can make a stronger case for depriving a convicted felon of the right to bear arms if it turned out that firearms were used in the commission of that crime, certainly if the gun was fired, or armed robbery, that kind of thing. Now you're getting a little closer to the public safety issue in terms of this person has used a gun to commit a crime before, and we have no reason to believe they won't do it again, and so on. But ultimately, when you get down to that argument, you really get down to the fact that, okay, so you're arguing that a career criminal will use a gun again, and if he's a career criminal, he's not likely to buy a legal gun anyway. So now we get to the other side of the argument, and that is sort of the second chance argument and the liberty argument. We don't deprive felons of their First Amendment rights. We don't deprive them of their Fifth Amendment rights. We don't deprive them of any other rights. And the Second Amendment is a right that is guaranteed in the Constitution. You don't lose your U.S. citizenship by committing a felony. And the Second Amendment right comes with citizenship, and so does the First and the Fifth and all the other ones. So since we are not able, nor should we, be depriving felons of their citizenship, then the mere fact that they remain American citizens means that they have all of the rights that are guaranteed to the American public, and that includes the Second Amendment. So to the degree that you may say, well, felons are lawless individuals and they're likely to commit crimes and maybe violent crimes, I would say to you, yes, you are correct. And I would also say that you may, in fact, be correct by saying that depriving felons of the right to own a gun may, in fact, reduce crime to some degree. That may or may not be true, but let's just say that it is. It is outweighed by the protections that are in place to protect not only the innocent but the guilty as well. Any argument you could make for public safety is outweighed by the threat to public safety from the erosion of the Second Amendment and all the rest of our constitutional rights. We have a system that is this. It's not directly on the felony issue, but it's connected to the philosophy. We have a system of innocent until proven guilty, and that system results in several guilty people going free, and in many cases, if not most cases, since we weren't able to clear the burden of proof, the person who was factually guilty, we could not prove their guilt. We have the presumption of innocence. They go out and commit more crimes, and in several cases, more murders. And this is appalling and repugnant and terrible. And the only thing is, worse than that is the cure, because the only way to prevent that from happening is to go with the presumption of guilt, and that is a much, much, much greater threat than the number of guilty people going free. So freedom, there's a cost for these freedoms. And the cost for the presumption of innocence is that sometimes guilty people walk free. I'm talking to you, OJ. And the cost for allowing felons to have the right to bear arms after they've served their term may result in a somewhat of an increase in crime, but it doesn't outweigh the entire idea of the protection of the constitutional rights of citizens. And if you're a felon and you've done your time, you're still a citizen, so you get the rights.
Well, call me a Second Amendment purist, but I don't think it should be illegal to own a gun. I don't. If you have, if I own a gun right now,
much better argument.
That should not be illegal. If I am not in a penitentiary and I own a gun, that should not be illegal.
Why didn't I think of that?
Keeping and bearing arms is one of those God-given rights that are protected under the Constitution from meddling by the government. Congress shall make no law regarding that. And so that's where I come down, regardless of who the person involved is. Now, I also know that it is an endless cycle, especially in America's inner cities, where a combination of, 3 strikes and you're outlaws that turn an accumulation of relatively smaller crimes into something that damns someone for life has resulted in a very high rate of recidivism, a very difficult re-entry for somebody coming back into the community. I'm going to go even further on this. Not only do I think we should not refer to somebody who's paid their debt to society as a felon or even as a former felon, I don't think it should be on a record that anybody can access. If you go to get a job and you've committed a crime in the past and you've paid your debt to society, then you should be able to go in to get that job and check that box that says, my record is clean, because it should be clean. If you can't clean your record by serving your time, then what's the use of serving your time, and why did they even let you out? If for some reason you're not safe to be walking around in society and we have to put a brand on you that's almost a literal burn tattoo into your flesh, then maybe you should still be behind bars. But if we can let you out, if there's such a thing as rehabilitation, if there really are correctional institutions, and if there is a second chance in this country of second chances, then you should have an opportunity to start your life fresh again and be judged on the decisions that you make going forward. If Lil Wayne indeed did not hurt anybody with a gun, and the only way we even know he had a gun is because federal agents went onto private property and searched that private property looking for such a thing, then I think that guy should walk free and the government should pay him and give him his gun back. For Bill Whittle and Stephen Green, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks to the members at BillWhittle.com for making this possible.